that we've covered the laning phase, we will be transitioning into teamfight course. Teamfights happen all too often in leagues, so I'm going to be breaking down how to approach different scenarios for you guys. Alright, so we're going to be jumping into our first teamfight breakdown. So things to note in this scenario is as follows. We are in the mid lane right here, and both of our side laners are our solo laners, and our jungler is not in this location. So things to note too is as follows. This is our flash is up, and the location at which everyone is coming in. So we'll just jump right into this team fight. We'll break it down as follows. So we're just contesting the wave in mid lane. When the wave actually comes out, we use our shield to actually dodge that. Because the two players are stacked on top of each other, as we've shown before, we use our mantra Q to then create pressure on them. Because of that, I run towards the Aurelion Soul and flash away to generate pressure away from my teammates. Because of that, and my teammates being able to collapse down from the top side, we're able to score multiple kills, and now that our assassins are unlocked, we're able to just use our numbers advantage to then continue to win the team fight. Pretty much 5-1. The most important things are as follows. Number 1 is absorbing pressure as a support. So, when the team fight starts in mid lane, as you can see, we immediately use our shield to get our movement speed, and we can see the wave going right here, so we use that to get out of the way. After that, as we've talked about in mantra Qs in our videos previously, we use this to just store a lot of damage on the players, get a lot of damage on the front load, and also slow them. So as you can see right here, we use our mantra Q just to create pressure on them and slow them down. This also gets a lot of damage on them. Also another thing to note too is you've now seen our mid laners start to channel teleport, which is our fizz. Most important things in this team fight are as follows. As you can see right here, the Aurelion Soul is actually stuck on the side. Because of that, you're going to find me splitting away from my AD carry. The reason for this is as follows. Now that the Nami is flashed here and the Aurelion Soul is down here, I know that because my teammates are collapsing and I hit a mantra Q, we're already winning this team fight significantly hard. Because I have my flash up, I know that I can actually bring them around through the terrain and get them away from the team fight. So as you can see right here, I make a conscious choice because the Aurelion Soul is now beginning to flank my teammates to run back into the Aurelion Soul. This causes his attention to come back over to me. This only works, by the way, if you're around terrain where you can flash over things. So I recommend if you're going to absorb pressure in team fights like this and use your flash to get away, that you're next to something that you can flash over. As you can see right here, I'm against the wall, so it's very easy for me to just flash over and create space for myself. Because of this, also a really important thing that you can see right here, my teammates are team fighting right in this location, the 3 of them, my mid laner, my top laner, and my Jhin. And because of that, I've actually pulled 2 people away, making this an even numbers fight even though our Lee Sin isn't there. Now because of that, I just run into the brush where there is fog of war and he can no longer see me, and just flash away. After that, my primary concern is just regrouping with my team. Now that I've prevented the Aurelion Soul from flanking behind my teammates, I can start to do that. Although our Jhin does end up dying, it doesn't really matter at that point in time because we have a huge numbers advantage and our Lee Sin is starting to come in. Because I've kept the Aurelion Soul away from the fight the entire time, he did no damage at all, and by the time he got there, we already had a numbers advantage, and we were able to secure this fight. The primary things to take away from this team fight breakdown is mostly using mantra Q whenever possible when you're not stacked on a lot of people, and also abusing the fact that you have flash. Sometimes you can actually pull players away from team fights, and then flash over terrain to get them away, and create a numbers advantage for yourself. Alright, jumping into our next teamfight breakdown, a scenario that maybe some people are all too familiar with. Your jungler has died in this scenario, and you're around Baron right now. The enemy players can contest it and potentially do it, especially since there's no smite up. This will mostly be focusing on how to play slow around Baron and get them off of Baron even if maybe your jungler has died. So we'll just jump right in, then we'll recap everything after we see it. So, as you can see from here, I'm actually just approaching from the top side and looking for any pressure that I can. Because the AD carry and mid laner have flashed in, we just immediately chunk them out and we're able to kite backwards. After that, we just want to make sure that they're always taking a lot of extra damage. Because of this, we wait for our Jax to go in and stun everybody, and because of that, we're able to hit another Q and score another kill. After that, because we've hit a W and we can chase down with our mantra Q, we're able to secure another kill. Despite the fact that the enemy players got the Baron, we're actually able to kill 4 of them and neutralize most of the pressure that they created. On top of that, this also opens up an opportunity for us to get an Infernal Dragon. So the team fight is as follows. Sometimes you need to just play slow and steady around Baron. So as you can see, a lot of our players are incredibly low on HP right here. So the first thing that we're going to do is attempt to contest over the wall. Now, this corridor is a little bit better than the other corridor because of the fact that it gives you a lot more open space in this location. Sometimes when people contest Baron, they come down this ramp right here. This ramp is really tight and allows people to cut around and do damage to them too easily. So we decided to cut around up here. Things to note too is our mid laner is actually incredibly low. So the majority of this contesting will actually occur right now with me and my AD carry. So we just want to look for any poke or pressure that we can. Had the enemy players not turned off it, we'd probably just cut up and around and shoot our mantra Q into the pit and just try to get damage on anybody. Remember, when Baron is being DPS'd, it creates an aura debuff on everybody involved that makes them take a lot more magic damage. So if you just play slow and let people harass themselves via tanking the Baron, you'll actually get a lot of value out of that. So the first thing that notes, the enemy Corki Valkyrie's in. Because of that, it's actually just pretty obvious for us to just use the Mantra Q to this location. The reason why we use the Mantra Q is just to do a lot of damage. Mantra Shield's not really worth because my AD carry is not stacked on a bunch of other players. And I just want to front load as much damage as possible. Also, another thing to note is because of the circle and where it's located, it actually makes it incredibly hard for the enemy AD carry to push in and look for my AD carry afterwards. As you can see, he is getting constantly slowed and can no longer get in range of my AD carry. Because we're actually so strong with the build that we always suggest you taking, we're actually able to basically one-shot with our Caitlyn, the mid laner. After that, it's just plain slow. Even though we've killed one player, we want to wait for our teammates to get there. Sometimes it's okay to let the Baron go as long as you kill most of the people and get the debuff off of all of them. Because of this, we're just waiting for everyone to get involved. So we wait for our Jax to come in. As you can see right here, he's now beginning to start channeling his Counter-Strike. And because of the fact that we pulled the Corki out of the pit and the AD carry was never DPSing, this actually gives us the time for our Jax to get here before they finish Baron, or as they finish Baron. Because of that, we just wait for the stun to go off and then we shoot a Q into that, allowing us to secure another kill, which is now the Sona. Now after that, I see that my Jax is just chasing the jungler, so I feel like I do not need to chase him at all. The AD carry has already gotten out, so there's no point in really going after him at all either. Now things to note too is my mantra is coming up and my flash is available. So immediately I use my W and use my shield on myself to make sure that I close the range on the Ornn. The Ornn actually though does a good job and flashes out of my tether range and uses his dash afterwards. Since I want to get Baron off of pretty much everyone, I use my mantra immediately beforehand and then we just flash and Q at the same time. Because of that, we hit the slow, and since he has no way to get out of there afterwards, we're able to score the kill on him. And that's how you play around Baron when you maybe have a numbers disadvantage. Remember, sometimes it's okay if you lose the Baron, as long as you're getting the Baron buff off of the majority of the people. Because you're getting a lot of kills, you're actually getting a ton of experience. Although it sucks to lose Baron, sometimes you can minimize the amount you lose by doing plays like this. Alright guys, jumping into our next video. Things to note about this scenario in this team fight is as follows. The enemy team is actually pretty far ahead and they have Baron and they're looking to siege off this wave. Because of that, my Vladimir and Shaco made a play on the other side of the map where we killed the Fiora. So this is a 4v5 fight in the sense that 4 people are alive on their team and 5 people are alive in our team. So we'll just break down the team fight and then we'll recap it afterwards. So as you can see right here, the Rakan decides to engage immediately and kill our Gangplank right off the bat. But because of that, they've overextended and they've been slowed by a lot of things such as Gangplank Ultimate. Because of this, I see 2 carries out of position. I decide to flash Mantra Q just to slow them down and look for harass. After that, you can see my Vayne is pushing forward right now. And because he's taking a ton of damage, I want to make sure he's as tanky as possible, so I give him the Mantra Shield. Now that I've soaked basically the maximum, I want to be standing on the max range for my teammates, just so that I can give them shields whenever they're going for kills. As you can see right here, I'm just standing as far away as I possibly can, but making sure I give shields to everybody who's getting duels in, so that they get the bonus movement speed. Because of that, Shaco is actually able to chase down and clean up all of the players, and we're able to wipe them and get rid of the Baron buff. The most important things in this team fight are as follows. Number one, the fight does start as 4v5, so losing this player right here still means that we're at an even advantage. So we're just kiting backwards, making sure we're not stacked on anybody, and shooting Qs on whoever. Most important thing to pay attention to at the start of this is my Vayne, since my Vayne is the one that's going to be able to continue chasing them the whole time as long as I'm feeding him shields. Because of this, I just feed him another shield and he constantly is going forward. Next is as follows. Paying attention to where carries are standing. Because I have my Mantra Q up and I don't feel like I need to use my Mantra Shield, I use my Mantra Q right here on the two carries that are really far ahead of their teammates in terms of running away. As you can see, the Rakan and the Lee Sin are already cutting backwards, and these two players are stacked directly on top of each other. Mantra Q is a really great way of dealing damage and significantly slowing people down. Remember when we introduced you to the skills, Mantra Q actually shoots and explodes farther than just a normal Q, so that's why I use it. Because of this, I just constantly want to give shields to my AD carry. Now the fact that we've slowed down both of their carries causes actually the two frontliners, Lee Sin and Rakan in this situation, to potentially have to keep coming back into the fight to try and protect these players. This actually buys time for both my Vladimir and my Shaco to start getting into position even though they're coming off of a base. Because of that, my Shaco actually deceives in and there's a W on the ground. So this actually is something we want to constantly avoid. One thing to note too is I actually got my snare, my W, onto the Xayah before he ultied. A thing to note is anything that's tethering or root based will actually still debuff them afterwards even if they land. So for example, if Rakan or Xayah lands on the ground but this tether is off, it will still cause him to get snared. So what you're seeing me do is just kite on the side right here to make sure that I don't get hit by too many spells, but I can get the snare off. As you can see right here, now he is snared and we have a lot of pressure. Next thing is I just want to give shields to whoever's in front of me. As you can see now, my AD carry has actually flashed forward and started going for a backliner because of the fact that I did hit the snare. Now I use my Mantra Shield right there just to heal him up and to give him the maximum amount of shield. You can see me constantly creating pressure since I have full HP and just looking for W's on anyone that I can to try and get snares off. Now that I've absorbed the maximum amount of damage possible in a team fight, you just see me staying on the outskirts. Make sure that you don't play too incredibly scared as your shield is actually still really useful for your teammates to allow him to chase people down. Because I was still next to him, he's actually able to chase down all the rest of the 3 people remaining and clear that Baron buff out. On top of that, we get a ton of experience because we participated in all the assists. Now that you've seen me initiate fights by flash mantra queuing, I want you to pull up a custom game and try it out for yourself. Get used to the distance everything can travel by being far away from the bot. Then flash and combo with mantra Q to see how far away you can initiate fights. Knowing these distances can really help you set up plays you normally wouldn't have access to. Most of League is quite hectic, so to help you out with the smoothness in your games, I've created a mid and late game warning guide around objectives to help you and your teammates be informed when you can and can't fight over them. So first we'll do each of the objectives, Dragon and Baron, and then we'll talk about how to set up vision when neither of these objectives may be up. So let's start with Dragon Vision, and for starters we'll be doing the blue side first. So a lot of times when you want to set up Dragon, there's pretty much a primary focus of the situation. If the turrets start to die down and there's no turrets here, then I recommend that you walk to mid first. The reason for this is it gives you the easiest access to then walking down the river and getting vision down for your team. In most cases, you basically want your warding situation to be such as this. You usually want to ward over this wall. That way you can see whenever players are walking over in any way, shape, or form. If the mid laner is starting to push over and maybe wants to ward over the wall, or if anyone's coming through this corridor, you can always see them. That way you can utilize this brush and this brush to potentially shoot skill shots over there when they're coming in. I recommend that you try to get a pink both here and here. Now, if you're a support, it just depends on the amount of pressure that that's going on. So, in a situation where you can push up mid extremely hard, and you don't have to worry about maybe the mid lane turret is dead, and you don't need to worry about the mid laner walking down and potentially walking through the river, and you're more concerned about this location right here, this pathway, then I recommend you use the pink ward right here. That way you have bush options to potentially set up people to get caught. In this situation, though, I would also recommend that you use a sweeper on whatever brush that you don't pink if your teammates aren't helping you with vision. After you have a ward right here, and hopefully it is more in the center, that way you can still see if mid laners are moving, and so you can see this corridor, I recommend getting a ward somewhere around here. Now, the main primary concern that you need to be worried about is a pink ward in this location. So in the case where you do know that there's a pink ward or are concerned about it, then I recommend moving the ward down a little bit more here. That way it's out of range of the pink, but still gives you the visibility over the wall. The other thing to be mindful of is on your third ward, it just depends on how the pressure is going. So in a situation where maybe the bot lane is constantly pushing in because you're mid lane right now, and you're concerned about them coming up the river, then I recommend using your third ward in this location. If that's not the case, then maybe after you push out mid, you get a ward more center in the mid lane, just so that you can see whether or not players like the mid lane or any of the other players are trying to cut down through this location. After that, you should be pretty set up to see all of the corridors for Baron in that situation. And that's going to be how we do it on blue side. Now we're going to kind of reset everything right now, and we'll go over to the example of being on the red side. So in this situation, same scenario as before, but this one's actually a bit more tricky because you need to get mid pushed out. Now, in this situation, you have 3 corridors to worry about, such as the same one as the other side, but this one is more middle, this ramp right here, and the tri-bush / cutting under bottom. So in this situation, you'll actually run into a lot more vision contesting, and what I mean by that is it's more likely that a pink ward is here, and maybe a pink ward is there, depending on the time in the game. Because of this scenario, you need to set up your wards in a way that allows you to not run into these, if you can't contest these pink wards, to adjust your vision. So in most cases, as the support, you want to walk to mid once again to prep for Baron. I recommend doing this about 45 seconds to a minute beforehand, and it usually takes about 15 seconds or so to walk to mid, so make sure you're calculating that in when you're channeling backs. So a lot of times the best way to go about it is just pink ward as far away as possible. That way no one can stand in this location right here and shoot over and take your pink ward. That's an important part of this. The next part is making sure that you ward over the wall. The reason why you ward like this is so that while you're sitting on your pink ward right here, you have options to shoot skill shots over the wall and potentially if the mid laner is trying to walk over and contest it. This also allows you to avoid running into this pink ward right here. Next, ideally, after you've established a set of vision, you do want to walk up and potentially contest this pink ward right here, and then get a ward down in this location. If for whatever reason you can't contest this pink ward or want to dodge this pink ward, in most situations what you can do is you can actually take the green ward and just ward it really deep, such as this. The reason for that is you're basically just abusing where the pink ward is. So in this situation, right, you ward this really deep right here, and that causes it so that if they repink this location after you take it away, it won't be in range to be pink. They'll have to either pink defensively, such as, move a pink here, or potentially sweep it, which makes them have to commit a lot more vision. Outside of that, if you're concerned about a champion possibly contesting over the wall, then your best ward is usually just right here. And the reason for that is there's usually a blast cone here, plus a lot of junglers nowadays can pop over the wall, and you want to make sure that you have as much full range of vision so that you can see whenever someone is trying to contest it over a wall. Maybe they're trying to steal it and then jump back over, or maybe abuse a blast plant, or just shoot skill shots that may try to steal it. So at that point in time, that's pretty much what you want to look at for all of the dragon situations. Next we'll tackle is the Baron vision. In most situations, you pretty much just want a centrifuge of vision. So, like before, pretty much you'll see as I'm describing all sorts of vision, you always want mid control. That way, you force their mid laner to step back, which then gives you access to either side of the map. So, we'll do the starting point for blue side once again. So, as a support on the blue side, you want to get mid pushed out. That way, you're pushing in all the way. That mid laner and potentially other people that are grouping with him have to stand back and let you clear the wave. Always having a numbers advantage pretty much guarantees that you'll get access to the wave first, thereby pushing it and then allowing you to move to different locations to get wards down. Now, Baron's a little bit trickier because there's lots of points of interest that you want to be controlling. I recommend backing when you want to control Baron with multiple pinks, because if you're not receiving any help in your elo, then you're going to kind of have to do this piece by piece. So, for starters, kind of the same concept as the dragon on red side. You want to pink ward this line brush right here, and then ward over the wall. The reason for that is you want to see access to if the mid laner is potentially coming over to contest, and it allows you to shoot skill shots over the wall. Now the rest is dependent on basically how much vision you can get out. In an ideal world, let's say we'll call it perfect world scenario, you have wards in these 3 locations. That way you can see all the corridors that pretty much people are coming outside of this location right here, but you should with this pressure have top pushed in. and then you can see people walking over. Now, in most situations, you don't actually get this kind of setup, and you kind of have to do a little bit of a weaker one. In this case, most of the time, what I find myself being able to get in terms of vision is right here and right here. This brush right here will allow you to see most of the concave over the wall outside of the tri-bush right here, and then you get a ward on the red buff. That way you can see a little bit deeper into this. It's important that you actually ward on the tip of the brush, not in the center like this, because it'll deny as much vision. You go right here, then you'll get a lot better concave of the information that you want to know. So in a lesser ideal scenario, you usually want this as your warding situation, and if you can't get this deep, then you probably want to get it warded over here, as this kind of tethers out in terms of vision about this location. The reason for this is so that you can see people potentially contesting the Blessed Plant, and same concept as the dragon popping over the wall to potentially steal it. Now, once you've established the pink ward, ideally you want another pink ward here, and another pink ward here, just denying the maximum amount of vision. Now, let's say you're a support and no one's really helping you right here. This is why I recommend that you buy multiple pink wards at once. Then what'll end up happening is you only have this set up, right? So you'll end up doing is, after clearing the wave, if you feel comfortable, you can then move your pink ward to the tri-bush, since you know that there's no wards here, and you have a ward right here, so you will see if anyone walks over to ward over the wall into the slime brush, and it will allow you to control all of the parts of the lane. Alright, so next we'll jump over, same situation, just on the different sides. So, just as before, you are the red side, want to get mid priority, making sure that you have the wave pushed out at least to the middle of the map. The reason for this is the same situation as before. We want to get a ward in mid lane. Now, this ward is dependent on where you can place it and where people are standing. There's a lot of times a common scenario where there's a pink ward here, so you don't want to put your ward too far over, and you want to make sure that your mid lane ward is spotting the mid lane area. You mostly just want some kind of centerpiece like this. That way you can see wherever people are walking. And same scenario, you'll basically want to have your pink ward in this line brush once again, so that you can shoot skill shots and potentially catch people. As you can see, it's kind of like, pretty much mid control is the most important part when you're wanting to contest Baron, because it's the most easiest access to getting to Baron, plus it's the least risky. If you're contesting, if you're the blue side and you've lost all vision control, you most likely want to walk like this. That way it gives you the most space to kind of juke out of spells in case people are standing in any of these brushes. You don't want to be walking through choke corridors when you don't see anything and then get hit by a bunch of spells. So, you run into this scenario right here. You want to get a ward down mid, and then usually you want your ideal wards are going to be right here and right here, or potentially a little bit deeper. Actually, this is your ideal ward. That way you're covering all three corridors once again, and we just ignore this location because your wave should kind of let you know who's moving over in this location. Now, the thing a little bit different about the red side versus the blue side is where you put your pink. Now, when you're on blue side, you want a pink inside the pit, because red side walks over and usually wards over the wall, so you want to be in range of that. Now, this dynamic changes, though, when you're on this side of the map, when you're on the red side, because blue players are walking over and trying to ward over the wall, such as this. So that means that you want your pink a little bit farther outside the pit. That way it covers all of this vicinity for when supports are potentially warding over the wall. Now, ideally, when you're playing support after that, you usually take your sweeper and run it up and down the river, making sure that you cover both of these brushes to make sure there's no wards there. Now, in situations where you can't walk up this deep, and we'll just pretend that this pink ward doesn't exist at the current time, what you'll end up doing is having more shallow wards. So, in a case where you're just trying to get quick vision and then go pull Baron immediately so you can see people walking, usually want a green ward about here. That way you're still covering the corridor over the wall. And then usually your green ward right here will be somewhere around this location. That way you're covering all of the corridors so you can see whenever someone's coming over to contest or potentially drop wards down. Now, the final part of the game is kind of like, how do you ward when there's no neutral objectives up? So pretty much in this situation, we'll be doing the same thing where I cover what the supports want to do in each of the scenarios. So let's say, for example, the top turret is up, the bottom turret is down, and you want to play to that. So pretty much in most cases, you want to just, as you can see from all of our videos, want to push out mid. The next part of it is just making sure that you have wards controlling the top side of the map. So in this case, always want to make sure that you have a ward down mid, preferably if this turret is still up, preferably right here. That way, once again, you can establish this line, shoot over skills. Then ideally, you want to get a ward here and a ward here. That way, you can transition and rotate to these sides. Pretty much most of the mid-game stuff for warding is just you want to have basically a line of sorts. So pretty much no matter what side you're on, red side or blue side, the most important ward is always warding the mid lane. That way you can see where people are rotating to, who's covering. Mid lane is the centerpiece of the map, and it allows you to rotate to both sides of the lanes, potentially for turrets, and that way you want to make sure that you always have a ward there. Then pretty much the other wards are such as, depending on whatever side you want to play to. If you want to play to bottom and your blue side, you want to ward here and ward in the jungle. That way you're covering all the 3 spots. Once again, as you can see, vision control, when you have 3 wards, is just about controlling the 3 corridors of the map that lead to either your objective or potentially cover you leading to their objective. In this case, right, you're the blue side, so you want to be able to push out mid and then rotate safely as fast as possible. These wards give you the ability to do that without getting caught as easily. Same situation, if you're on blue side and you're trying to play for top side, you ideally want wards in these 2 locations. That way, once again, you can push out mid and you can rotate. This is why the team that pushes out and moves always usually wins, because then you can ward deeper, which causes, in this case, the red side to have to walk all the way around in order to defend, which makes them slower to getting to each of the objectives, and that's how you get turrets. Same scenario pretty much on the other side. You ward for red side, you ward mid lane, and then we get wards down in the same locations pretty much as we want to control Baron, and then these 2 locations right here if we want to control the bottom side. Anyway, that's it for mid-game warding tips. Thanks for watching.